Hello, my name is Charles Winfield. I'll be presenting my project for Module 2 today, which was to create a quote form for rocket elevators, which is dynamic using JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. All right, no more from me. Let's get into it. All right, so we're back here. This is the rocket elevators website. We're just going to go through and I'm going to show you all the functionality of the site, make sure all the buttons are functional and that we're able to get uh, good navigation here and that the form works. So this is the home page. One of the requirements is that the header here and the footer here is the same on the quote page. So we'll be checking for that as we go, and also that these buttons here from the home page take us there. So we have a couple of different buttons to get us there. We got to get a quote, and that takes us right over to uh, the quote page here, and you can see that the header and the footer are the same there and there. So we're good, and then we're gonna go back home, and we're gonna check the commercial services, request a quote, and we're right back at it. So we're good there. A couple of other places that we can find a request for a quote here are going to be on the residential page. I'm sorry, I'm just double checking. So we go to a residential, we got 10% off. Boom. And then the last page here is going to be our commercial, and it's 5,000. So yes, it is functional. It does work. All right, now we're going to check all the buttons here on the services page. So we got services, we got portfolio. Oh, let me go back. So we'll go back to services, get a quote, portfolio. That's good. News. That's good. Clients. And that's good. And then finally contact. And that's good. So we're good there. All the buttons are functional. Header and footer's the same. All right, next we're going to check the quote form itself. Get a good look at that. We got residential. So there was a form that was provided by uh, the um, Codeboxx, and it provides some numbers here for us to plug in. So first we're going to do industrial. So saying if there's 53 elevators input, the required elevators should be 53. And these are the costs for standard, premium, and Excellium. So we'll just take a look at those, and then we'll see them change into these values as we plug them in. So the input here is going to be 53 and 53. And, oh, I'm sorry, we're on industrial. Industrial, and that's going to be 53 and 53. And the standard here is 8,000. So you see 8,000, 424,000, 42,000, 400 for the install fee, and 466, 400,000. Let's double check these values against these, and we have a match. Okay, so next we're going to check for premium. As you notice, these values did not change. These values did change. So these numbers are correct. 636,095.4 and 731.4. And as you can see here, 636,95.4, 731.4. Excellium, same. 795, 159, 954. 795, 159, 954. All right. Next is going to be residential apartments. It's 100 and 3 floors should give us required elevators of 6. So 100 apartments, 3 floors. Oh, sorry. Residential, 100 apartments, 3 floors, 6 required elevators. That number checks out. All right. So standard 48,000, 4,800, and 52.8. 48,000, 4,800, and 52.8. So we're good there. All right. Premium 12, 72, 10.8, and 82.8. 72, 10.8, and 82.8. We're good there. Excellium. Those numbers are 15.9, 15, 90, 18, and 108. And yes. So we got that here. Got 90, 18, and 108. So the math checks out there, both for industrial and elevators. Next, we're going to, all right, industrial and residential. Now we're going to check commercial elevators. All right. So we're going to go to our drop down here, choose type building, residential. All right. So the residential is going to be, we got 100 apartments. No, I'm sorry. The commercial, we got 50 for the max occupancy. Number of floors is 6. Elevators required should be 3. So we got 50, 6. Sorry, 6. And number of elevators is 3. Standard. We got 24,000, 2,400, and 26.4. And yes, 24,000, 2,400, 26.4. Next up, 36, 54, and 41 for the premium. Yep, 41.4, I'm sorry. 36, 54, and 41.4. So we're good there. Next is going to be Excellium. That's 45, 9, and 5,400. So we're all set there. Okay. So that covers the calculations. So the calculations for the form do work. There were additional requirements to the form, which had been in practice here. If you'll notice, one of the things was only being able to select one of the drop downs at a time. What you see there, we got residential, commercial, or industrial, and select brings us back to nil. So none of the, and then we want to check and make sure all the fields change when we check those. So we got number of apartments, number of floors, and number of elevators here for building details. For commercial, we've got number of floors, max occupancy, and number of elevators required. And for industrial, we have number of elevators and number of elevators required. And there's no change there. So as far as that particular portion of the project goes, that is accurate. The other thing was only being able to select one radio button at a time. And you can see it works for residential. And we've already demonstrated this, but just for demonstration purposes. And industrial, as you can see, these all work. The other requirement for the form was making sure that the numbers down here output in dollar signs. So they only, as you can see, you can't click on any of these fields. These are read-only fields, which was also another requirement. So all the fields here are only dollars, and all the read-only fields are just read-only. So number of elevators required is a read-only field. You can't input anything there. And all the outputs, as you've already seen, are in dollars. So the functionality is there for all of these. All right. And then the last piece they wanted to check for here was making sure that if these numbers here changed, the inputs changed, that the values changed at the bottom. So let's just check it out here. We got 15, 15, and 1. So that's what that price is. But if I put in number of apartments to, let's say, 1,500, you see that the number down here changes, and it's across all the fields there, and it's good on all of the uh, different selections there. So we're good there. Also, that we could only put whole numbers in. As you can see here, you can't see it, but I'm pushing the plus button. Nothing's coming up. The minus button. I disabled the ability to even put anything in other than a whole number, and I'll show you the functionality for that. Um, the other thing was when the page loads, the only field that is shown is step one. So that was additional functionality there. When the page loads, no other fields are shown. So we can go back to the home page and go back there from a quote, and you'll see, all right, there's no other field shown until one of these is selected. So, and if you go back to select, it'll reset back to nil. All right. Additional functionality here. So I did go ahead and do the extra credit assignment, which was to style the page. Um, got a nice little background here. Packages we offer, the form, some testimonials, and just tried to dress it up a little bit using brand colors. So these colors are exclusive to the logo up there. Um, didn't really deviate from the brand standard. Okay, so that pretty much covers that portion of it. Um, the form is functional. It has read-only fields. The drop downs are you can only select one drop down at a time, one radio button at a time. The output fields here are in dollars, and that pretty much covers the requirements. And now we're going to go into our code editor here, and I'm going to show you what my JavaScript files look like. And then that will go ahead and conclude our presentation. All right. Here we are inside of our quote.js file. I'm just going to go top down and explain the functions that you already saw in action on the browser here. So the first one here is function format numbers as currency. The function is called format currency. Basically, it returns the value to a local string. String is just a set of numbers, converts it into currency here. So that's U.S. currency, U.S. dollars. So that's the value that this function returns with the parameter of value. And that's exactly what this is. So the value that's input uh, returns that. And this function is outside of the DOM content loading. So it's only ran after other functions have already been loaded. So we have here the function reset quote form. Ultimately, what this does is reset the form. These are the elements that get reset when a different uh, input is selected by the radio or by the drop down menu here. So this is part of it. So every time the radio button is checked, I said or drop down menu. This doesn't apply particularly to the drop down menu, but these get element IDs do. But this query selector is specific for when the radio buttons are checked. It'll set the fields back to regular or input a new value based on other inputs. Okay, so when the DOM loads, that's what this is here. Document, add, event listener, DOM content loaded. So when the page loads, it runs functions and declares variables to get the program started for the page. So the first set here we have, this is a variable called IDs, which is an array of all the variables that are in the IDs that are in the quote form. And what this does here is set it so that when the page loads, there's these elements are not displayed. That's why when you go to the page, you only see step 1 and you don't see steps 2, 3, and 4, primarily because it is functioning here. And then we also created additional uh, arrays for these specific fields to get different functionality, which I'll show you momentarily. And then these arrays actually coincide with the drop down menu. So when residential is selected, these IDs are shown. When commercial is selected, these IDs are shown. And when industrial is selected, these IDs are shown. Okay, and then we have declare variables here that are used globally in different functions, building select, and this is from the building ID, apartments input. So when a number is put in, it's put into and stored into this variable. The floors input. So when number of floors is put in, it's put into this variable. Occupancy, put in that variable. Elevators, put in that variable, and require elevators is put into that variable. And those variables, this is where the when the values are input or output, they go through this uh, tag here, get element by ID. All right, so the first function that we have listed right here is called the run elevator calculation. So the run elevator calculation, there's 3 of them, but run elevator calculation applies to all 3 of the calculations. So I have 3 separate functions, one for residential, and that's the update elevator calculation, one for commercial, that's the update commercial elevator calculation, and one for industrial, and that's the update industrial calculation here. So basically the building type, this is on the drop down menu. When it equals residential, it'll run the function. When it equals commercial, it'll run that function, and when it selects industrial, it'll run this function, which is down a little bit further, but I'll show you how we get there. All right, so next up we have the building select uh, event listener, so and function. So if there's a change to the drop down menu, it'll show specific fields, and that goes back up to what's up top here. So we've got show fields, all right, and that it'll select the ones that need to be shown based on the drop down up here. So like I said, it'll show these fields based on this selection and ran through this function, show fields. All right, and all fields. So basically, this is showing that it'll reset everything when a different uh, selection is made. So if you're on residential and select commercial, it'll just reset there. So we have event listeners here to run the elevator calculation function once there's inputs that are made. So both of these inputs have to be made uh, based on the requirements here. So apartments and floors, that's for one set of function, and then floors and occupants, that's another, and then elevators, that's another function here, each respective to commercial, industrial, and residential. So we have another event listener here, which is radio, and this just basically will get the required elevators input to update the pricing field. So when the button is checked, it'll run this function, and then it'll change the update pricing fields function in the elevator count. And the reason why this is important, the elevator count determines what the price estimate is going to be. So if the elevator count is 1, then the unit price will be whatever that is, and then all the additional prices are based off the elevator count. So when the update pricing field function is ran, it's based off of how many elevators are put in at the time, and it's also dynamic so that when they update the amount of elevators, the price updates simultaneously. So that triggers that function. All right, and then we have the number here. the number of inputs. So this is how the special characters, the negative characters, are not allowed to be shown when the or input when a user is trying to input like a negative number, a fraction, or a decimal. This is the code that runs that, and so it operates off of key down. That's the event listener. So it's listening, it's waiting. If they push that key, it'll run this set of functions. If it's any of these keys, it'll return default. So and then it'll replace non-whole numbers and negative numbers or any other value if to a positive number. All right, and then down here we also have an additional event listener, and this one is for the wheel. So I was having a problem with my mouse wheel when I scrolled up or down off of one of the input sections, the number would change. So this disables the mouse wheel inside those input fields. So in the input fields where there's a number type, if I scroll that's me scrolling my wheel, it won't work inside of that field. You have to get outside that field to scroll because otherwise it'll change that number. All right, right here we have this is the section that calculates all the functions for residential elevators, commercial elevators, and um, industrial. So I'm not going to get detailed into this to the point that it's mind numbing, but this is the equation here that was provided in a business document. This statement rounds this uh, doubles the number based on if it's greater than 20 elevators, then the amount of elevators required doubles, and that's what this is here. Math.power, which is a function included with JavaScript, and then it causes the required elevators to double. So basically, this is saying if that number is greater than 20, then we're going to go ahead and double that number of elevators, and we're going to store that in the required elevators variable, which is why that variable is let versus const, because it changes. And this is update elevator calculation, which is exclusive to residential elevators. It takes the two parameters required here, number of apartments, number of floors, and stores them into these variables. Apartments input value and floors input value. So basically, the number that's put in is stored into this variable and turned into an integer. So that means it's a whole number. That's what it checks to make sure it's just a whole number. This is another program here. It's an if statement that says if those numbers are numbers and they're greater than zero, then run the calculate elevators function with these two parameters. And that's this function up here. So after the numbers are put in, it goes through that series of checks. If it's good, then it's going to return um, the input value of required elevators equals required elevators. So it's going to run this calculation to see what the required elevators are, and then it's going to store it in here, and then it's going to output in the screen with the document get element by ID for the required elevators input, and that's what the value will be. If it's not one of those numbers, then there's no value that'll be put in there. So it has to be a number, and they both have to be entered for that to calculate. All right, and then also we have here if after they put in that number, they have to select standard premium or Excellium, and then once that's selected, it'll run this function at the bottom, which is called update pricing fields. And this function is included or accessed by all three of the functions: commercial elevators and industrial elevators. But we'll get to that in just a moment. Here we have the calculate commercial elevators. Same deal as the other one, just different parameters. Basically, uh, it checks and runs the equation, make sure it's a whole number, stores the variable. This one had freight elevators in there, so I had to run the increment function. So every 10 elevators was a +1 on the freight elevator. So we stored that variable into total commercial elevators. Commercial elevators required is the amount that comes up out of this function, and then that number added with the freight number, which comes from here, uh, returns the total commercial elevators. So once again, we need that number to calculate what the price is going to be. And then the update commercial calculation, same deal as above. All right. If max occupants is entered and the right number and number of floors and it's greater than 0, to go ahead and run this function up here to get the required numbers of elevators. Take that input and put it out into the uh, the document there. Get document by ID. That's what all this means here. Required elevators input dot value equals total elevators. So basically, it's saying this number is what's going to be put out into the fields, and it's the same for all three. And then again, when the based on the radio buttons, it'll update the pricing fields. Um, and again, those standard, premium, and Excellium. Same thing for industrial, which was the easier one. Basically, the number of elevators was the input, so we didn't have to write an equation for that. Basically, it just said, hey, elevator count and you know the number input, the elevator count number equals. I mean, the elevator count number is going to be what's put back out into the field, but that was a one-on-one, so we didn't have to get too busy with that. Same thing with the radio function down here. So now we're into the actual how the quote was created, and ultimately here the quote is by the update pricing fields function, and so this function ultimately um, update pricing fields and the unit price. These are all variables that are declared with inside this function that go directly into the estimate section at the bottom. Unit price, elevator cost, installation fee, and total cost. And we set those values at 0 for unit price and installation fee because those values change based on the radio selections. So we declare variables here for the radio selections. And so standard radio is set to the value standard. So when that's clicked, that'll set this function. So that's what this is. If standard radio is selected and checked, boom, the unit price is this, the installation fee is this. If premium radios selected and checked, the unit price is 12,000, installation fee is 15. Excellium radio check, unit price is 15, installation fee is 20%. So then we run the if else statement. If the unit price is greater than 0 and the elevator count is greater than 0, then we're going to calculate the elevator cost, which is going to be the unit price times the elevator count. So elevator count now is able to pick one of the three values from the three functions that I mentioned to you above: update commercial, update industrial, and elevator count. All right, and then it's going to take this number here, whatever this is, which is the unit price times the elevator count, and then it's going to multiply by the installation fee. So if the elevator count, if the unit price is 8,000, the elevator count is 1, that'll be 8,000. So that'll be 8,000 times the installation fee, which is 0.1. So that'll equal $800, and then you add these two values. That's what this function, this variable does here. It adds these two variables to come up with the total cost, and then those uh, values are stored in these variables, their values, and converted into dollars, running the format currency uh, function, which I showed you at the very top of the screen, and that is our JavaScript file. And then I have my additional quote CSS file here. These are some of the styling that I did to change the page with my own little unique custom. I didn't really go outside the color scheme here. Maybe change some text. These are brand colors here based off of the logo and brand standards. And then we have the quote .html file here. And ultimately this file, just to go over, everything that was required here in the requirements. Boom, we have the new CSS file, quote CSS, and then we have the navigation, and then we have the actual, let's get on down here to the form so I can show you what was required in the form. So this is the building details. This is what you saw in the JavaScript. These are the IDs that the JavaScript was getting the element ID for: flooring, res apartments, occupants. So basically the JavaScript files were coming in, looking at these. Either it was getting the values from the input or putting the values in input for the read-only files. So the ones that I showed you are read-only. They're designated by this right here, read-only. Read-only, 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 read-only. And that's how I was able to achieve that. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, of course, I'm open to it. If there's any suggestions, I'm definitely open to it. Thank you for your time. All right. So to recap everything that we just learned, these were the quote.html requirements, and a separate file was created with the markup, a JavaScript file created containing the code. Quote page access through links, that was demonstrated. Quote page header and footer are identical in appearance to the ones of the index page. Quote page header and links are functional and redirect to the appropriate sections. And then we had the quote in page requirements, input page requirements. Drop down or radio buttons allows the users to select one of three building types: residential, commercial, and industrial. Only one building type can be selected at a time. Before a building type, the user cannot see the other non-readable read-only input fields. When selecting a residential building type, the required fields are shown. Commercial building required fields are shown. Same for the industrial fields, industrial building. And the inputs only accept numbers. That's correct. Only accepts positive numbers. That was demonstrated. Radio buttons allow the users to select from one of three product tiers: standard, premium, and Excellium. So that was demonstrated on the form and in the code. Only one radio button can be selected at a time. That was demonstrated. And the four required output fields are present and read only. So that was the pricing section. There was actually 5 read-only fields, but 4 that contain the pricing estimate. Based on the provided scenario, the results of the residential, commercial, and industrial buildings are correct and displays in currency format. So those were tested and demonstrated. The required fields, output fields, dynamically update as the user changes their input values. We demonstrated that. And the values of the output fields are dynamically updated as the user changes their product tier. So as we change between standard, premium, and Excellium, the prices did change for the residential, commercial, and industrial fields. So that concludes my presentation today. These were my takeaways. I learned how to manipulate the DOM using JavaScript. I gained an understanding of creating functions and coding using conditional logic. I developed an understanding of prompting AI to assist with coding and explaining coding, and became familiar with syntax, variable declaration operators, data types, and event listeners. Thank you for your time. All right, so that concludes my presentation today. Thank you for your time. I just wanted to put a face behind the voice. Have a good one.